Good afternoon, everybody. I'm very glad that I can welcome you for this fifth webinar about energy transition in buildings, especially with a focus on fire safety competences. And it's the fifth webinar in our European Fire Safety Week. And ladies and gentlemen, last year we had the first European Fire Safety Week, and it was really necessary because we thought there is an urgency to get more awareness about fire safety. To connect specialists, to learn, to make things happen. And we all know there are a lot of casualties every year in Europe, about 5,000 who deceased from fire. And most of those fires are preventable. So we really want to work on better fire safety. And that's not only by talking, but taking action. And we took all the conclusions from the Fire Safety Week from last year in a report that's called the European Fire Safety Action Plan. You will all know it, I hope. With 10 interesting points, 10 important points, with a lot of areas we have to talk about. And one of those important points is energy transition. And this week, now we're talking in the second European Fire Safety Week on those issues. And we try to tell you something about the progress we make, about the support, about the collaboration. And we are with about 500 people from 40 countries who really want to learn and to listen from each other and to support all our actions. And today, like I said, we will focus on webinar number 5, and that's about energy transition in buildings, and especially the focus on fire safety on competencies. An important issue, and I'm very glad that a lot of people organized this webinar today. And I'm very honored that several MEPs will be participating too. And I would like to give the floor to the first MEP to do the opening. And that is Mrs. Zeljano Zavko from Croatia. Please, can I give you the floor?
Thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me to this webinar. And in order to mark European Fire Safety Week that we are celebrating. I will give you my speech in order to not forget all the important points that I would love to make regarding this very important subject. It is a pleasure to be here with you during the European Fire Safety Week, and I would like to thank the European Fire Safety Alliance for the organization of this webinar. I truly hope that the discussion we are about to hear today will inspire us and can lead us towards more fire safety. In my political career, I have been actively working around fire safety in the European Parliament. I was involved in the upgrading of the Union's civil protection mechanism after heavy forest fires in South Europe, and I called for European Fire Safety Day to commemorate the victims of fire safety and to bring the concept of fire protection more to the foreground. Fire prevention and protection are competencies that lay mainly in the hands of the member states. Actions at European level are limited, but not less important. Raising the awareness of fire safety, for example, by conferences such as this one, or the exchange of views, knowledge, and database stakeholders in Europe can bring us to a safer and more sustainable society. And let this sustainability be one of the key words of the discussions today. With the European Green Deal, the EU has the ambition to render our lifestyle cleaner, more sustainable, and more environmental friendly. By decarbonizing the energy supply and by moving towards more renewable sources, we address one of the key aspects to reach this goal. But we should not forget that this energy transition should happen in a secure way. The substantial implementation of new technologies in the construction and the energy sector and the increased reliance on electricity brings additional fire safety challenges. And next to the promotion of greener living conditions, these challenges should be incorporated to our overall approach. In a European Parliament resolution of September, we therefore stressed that fire safety aspects should be considered during the design, selection of materials, construction, and the renovation and operation of buildings in order to improve prevention, detection, early suppressions, evacuation, as well as the relevant competencies of professionals involved. These objectives call for the inclusion of safety engineers in different phases of the production process. I believe that one of the possibilities to strengthen the role in the energy transition is via the recently proposed initiative of the European Bauhaus. Through cooperation of designers, scientists and architects, and via innovation and creativity, European Union wishes to realize its Green Deal in a sustainable but aesthetic way. Among the project lines in this initiative, natural buildings, materials, and energy efficiency will also be discussed. President von der Leyen said that good design can improve lives. I would even add, first and foremost, good design should also save lives. As there is still plenty to discuss today, and I can imagine that the experts are looking forward to inform us about their insights and suggestions on this interesting and important topic, I would like to conclude my opening address here. And thank you once again for having me here and to give me the floor, and I wish you a fruitful conference.
Thank you very much for your warm words and that you underline the importance of fire safety in the energy transition. Thank you very much for that. And next to that, I would really like to give the floor to the second member of European Parliament, Mrs. Maria de Gracia Carvalho, for her speech. Please, the floor is yours.
Hello, good morning. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. I'm quite happy to participate in the Fire Safety Week. One topic that in my academic career I have worked, because I'm a mechanical engineer on the area of energy and computational fluid dynamics, and I have supervised several PhD theses exactly on fire in buildings. So I'm quite pleased to share with you some of my thoughts on this area, and thank you for this opportunity. As we all know, the energy transition and the associated with the Green Deal is one of the major priorities of the present Commission and of President von der Leyen. And inside the energy transition, the building sectors plays a very important role. We have a large proportion of emissions that are attributed to the building sector, and one of the priorities, both for the energy transition and for the next recovery plan, are going to be associated with the renovation wave, with the inclusion of energy efficient measures of buildings, of our built environment. So we will have measures on the energy efficiency, but also on decentralized energy production, decentralized renewable energies to be included in the renovation of the buildings. For a long time, I have been pushing for the decentralized energy production, the empowering of people, and a kind of concept of do-it-yourself energy culture, with the existence of do-it-yourself energy supermarkets, where you can buy your own materials and equipment, and for simple solutions for your house, for your office, you can increase the energy performance of the buildings. Of course, you need basic skills for that, and this is something that we should give to the general population, is a more knowledge on energy. And associated with this, especially if we don't provide the required skills, we can increase risks But it's important for that to have these skills and competence on the people. And one of the risks is always the fire in buildings. So we need to be very careful and very attentive to the passive and active measures on fires, on fire protection. And the passive fire protection needs to be part of the renovation wave. Not only in terms of the materials, that is a very important topic, the choice of the materials, fire resistant materials, for when we do the choice for what to use in the building renovation, but also in terms of the design development of the building, or the new building, or in the renovation building. And do not forget the urban plan, because it's not only the building isolated, but it's also what is around the building that is important for the fire propagation. And the building designers, the architects, need to work together with the scientists and specialists from fire propagation, material scientists, and the fire propagation has been is a science that has developed a lot with the advancement in the complex modeling of the computational fluid dynamics, radiation models, combustion models, soot production. All these are necessary to predict well a fire, and the fire, for example, the fire propagation inside the building. And it is impressive what you can gain in terms of the design of the building, the geometry of the different parts of the building, the corridors, where are the walls, the dimensions, the aspect ratios, all that have an impressive influence on the fluid flow inside the building, and can increase the time that you have to escape from the buildings, and make the buildings much much safer. And so all these advancements in physics and chemistry and modeling, with the use of computational power and high performance computing, allow us nowadays to compute large buildings in terms of the fluid flow inside the buildings, and this is a very valuable for the fire protection in the building. I fully agree with my colleague that has said that the Bauhaus initiative can be a very important moment where architects, designers, together with the scientists and the specialists in the different areas, including all the areas that I have explicitly said on the fire propagation, will design much safer buildings than before. I have myself the experience of, after large fire in Lisbon, that was in the downtown Lisbon, Chiado, where the very nice old part of Lisbon was completely destroyed. When the authorities decided to rebuild our National Laboratory of Civil Engineering, asked me to help them to supervise this work of the complex fluid computations of fluid dynamics and radiation and combustion. And with our computation that were also validated with the large experience, they built on site on the LANEC buildings where we could get data to validate our models. We were able to optimize and to give some norms and standards for the construction of the new buildings for that region. and for the renovation of some of the buildings that were not completely destroyed and were could be renovated. And for example, very interesting is that in Lisbon, in the narrow streets, the influence, because the distance is very small between the buildings, the propagation is very easy from one building to the other. And for example, the size of the windows and the doors and the materials of the windows and the doors are a very important factor, and we did a lot of norms and recommendations on that. So this is to tell you, at the time we had difficulty with the hype, we didn't have enough computer power. Today that is different. Fortunately, we have a lot of computer power. So I just think that we are, and also with all the data that we have, the big data available now, all the possibility to use computing power, artificial intelligence, adding to the computational fluid dynamics, artificial intelligence, self-learning algorithms, we can help a lot. And the architects, the more civil engineers, and all together to design efficient buildings, sustainable buildings, affordable buildings, and overall safe buildings where we can live comfortable and in a safe way. Thank you very much for your invitation.
Mrs. Carvalho, thank you very much for your contribution. And I really like the fact that you underline the importance of connecting the upgrade of fire safety with the renovation wave, because it's a very good chance to make real steps in the future. Thank you very much for that. Ladies and gentlemen, that's now the moment to continue with the program, and I'm very glad that I can give the floor to the Vice Chair of the European Fire Safety Alliance, Mr. Christoph Bisschop, who will lead us further on in the program. Christoph, the floor is yours.
So, Ellie, thank you very much for your introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. My presentation will be a kind of introduction to the issues that we will discuss during this webinar. The impact of the energy transition on fire safety and the importance to develop knowledge and competency. Next slide, please. Now we are dealing with so-called fourth industrial revolution, one example of which is, in fact, the energy transition. In simple words, we could say that a revolution is a significant change that usually occurs over a relatively short period of time. And this is exactly what was proposed by the EU in the ambitious goal of making Europe's energy system climate neutral by 2050. The energy transition, it is a revolution of some kind, technological, socio-economic, and even mental in some parts. And we need to remember that every revolution in principle is difficult to control. Next slide, please. So like every revolution, like every significant changes or transformations, the energy transition brings many changes to our lives. The list of main changes driven by the energy transition is presented on the slide. Starting from the decentralization of energy generation, increased electrification, new forms of energy and transportation, unprecedented rate of novel materials and technologies, new architecture of the energy system, increased complexity of system, or circular economy. If we supplement this list with general changes and trends we observe worldwide, like growing and aging population, climate change, or novel building architecture, we can easily notice how complicated environment we operate in and how many new challenges we will need to face with. Next slide, please. In short, turning the energy transition into reality will have significant implications for fire safety requirements, notably of buildings. In practice, fire safety requirements of buildings will need to be adapted accordingly. More complex buildings will create higher fire hazard and less predictable fire environment. For example, electrification of power supplies will lead to increase of electric installations and equipment in buildings. We will also face more commonly with on-site energy generation and storage, as well as transformation to direct current. And yet now, according to the report developed by the Forum for European Electrical Domestic Safety, electrical installations and devices are responsible for 25 to 30% of all domestic fires, and increase of 5 up to 10% in the last decade. Next slide, please. So, in fact, all layers of fire safety of buildings, starting from prevention through evacuation up to firefighting, are affected by the energy transition. Taking this into account, we really need to discuss on how to prepare buildings for a safe energy transition. Because buildings are getting more and more complex, ensuring fire safety is also becoming a growing challenge. That's why it is so important to develop fire safety knowledge and competencies, in particular to ensure that fire safety adequately accompanies the sustainable transformation of the building stock. May I have the next slide, please? So, ensuring the fire safety of building is getting more and more complex. That's why competent professionals with clear roles and responsibilities are really necessary. On the slide, you can see interesting statement on complexity of fire by Professor José Torero during discussion in the Scottish Parliament last November. If you wanted to have brain surgery, you would go to a highly qualified neurosurgeon, because you know that it is incredibly complex problem. Fire safety is also incredibly complex problem. Therefore, it requires an equal level of competence. Next slide, please. So, energy transition has been identified as one of the most important issues for the fire safety improvement in the European Fire Safety Action Plan, which was developed as a follow-up of the last year edition of the European Fire Safety Week. The diagnosis in the action plan is presented as follows. Fire safety must be an inseparable part of the energy transition. Why? Because there is insufficient awareness, knowledge, and competency regarding the new fire hazards associated with the energy transition. And as an action for the coming years aimed at improving fire safety in Europe in the field of energy transition, it was proposed to develop knowledge and competency to ensure fire safety adequately accompanies the energy transition. Next slide, please. On this slide, we can have a look on references to fire and electrical safety in the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. The directive requires, in fact, energy experts, independent accredited experts for energy performance certification and inspection of heating and air conditioning systems. Revised directive in 2018 mentioned also fire safety. You can see this new Article 2A, paragraph 7. Each member state may use its long-term renovation strategy address fire safety and risk related to intense seismic activity affecting energy efficiency renovation and the lifetime of building. Also, Article 7 refers to fire safety. Yes, I know that it doesn't sound very impressive, but it's worth appreciating the progress. There was no direct reference to fire safety in the directive up to 2018, and now it is. Of course, it seems to be necessary to have independent accredited experts for fire safety design and for inspection of electrical installations. But may I have another slide, please? A little more light in the tunnel appears when we take into account recent own initiative report of the European Parliament, maximizing the energy efficiency potential of the EU building stock. In this document, European Parliament recalls the Commission that fire safety aspects should be considered during the design, selection of materials, construction, renovation, and operation of buildings in all 7 layers of fire safety of the building, as well as the relevant competencies of professionals involved during design, construction, and renovation. Let us wish, make it true. Or maybe I need to correct myself. Let's do together as much as possible to make it true. Thank you very much for your attention. So, to keep our webinar efficient and dynamic, we are going to continue in the conversation mode between me as a moderator and invited speakers. Please remember that you can ask questions and make comments via Q&A tool and also via chat. Conversation will be also visually summarized in real time by Joyce, who is a graphic designer. We will see the result of her work at the end. Okay, let's continue. The first speaker whom I want to ask on a very interesting survey he made is Quentin de Haalt. Quentin is the executive chair of the Modern Building Alliance. So good afternoon, Quentin. Can you hear me?
Yeah, good afternoon.
So Quentin, you've made a survey to architects about the involvement of fire experts in their projects. Could you please tell us what was the objective?
Yeah, so thank you, Christoph. So as you said, fire safety is complex. It was also highlighted by the two MEPs before, and it requires expertise. So on the next slide, you can see a few information about the survey. And so we think the role of fire engineers or experts must be strengthened, as you say rightly. And we wanted to understand what is the current situation. So how much are architects currently involving fire experts into their projects? What are the main reasons for that, the main drivers? And also to ask to architects how much they consider they are responsible for fire safety, or who else is responsible.
Are architects involving fire experts in their projects?
Yeah, so the short answer is yes. You can see on the next slide some elements. So all the details of the survey that we have made will be available on our website just after the webinar. And here you can see in which percentage of their projects architects are involving different type of experts. So we can see that structural engineers are quite often involved with 69% of the projects. Fire safety experts are also involved, but much less, so with 36% of the projects. And also interesting in the context of renovation wave, actually energy experts are much more involved than fire experts. We see differences between countries. So for example, German architects are more inclined to involve external experts, and also particularly for fire experts, while in other countries it can be much less. And when we looked in the details of the numbers, we have also seen that fire experts are usually even less involved in renovation and in residential buildings. And knowing that it's the focus of the renovation wave, there is maybe something to do there.
Okay, why architects involving or not involving fire experts?
So it was indeed our next question. So there are different things. Of course, it depends on the way they perceive their own competency. So if they think they have sufficient knowledge on fire safety, they will not necessarily require someone else. But if they feel they don't have this knowledge, they are more inclined to involve an expert. So that sounds logic, but depends, of course, of their own perception. Of course, a legal requirement or a requirement by the customer can be something that is clearly a driver. And then interesting elements also that we have seen is that for 21% of the architects, they consider that there is a lack of competent fire experts. So maybe the fire experts are not visible enough, known enough for them. And there are some difference between countries. And then one interesting element as well, 60% of the architects consider that involving a fire expert can help them to better meet the requested design, so to better combine fire safety with all the other performance aspects. So that's encouraging. But there is one exception to that in Germany, which was the country where architects are the most often involving fire experts. Then these numbers drops to 19%. So only 19% of the German architects consider that involving a fire expert is helping them to better meet the requested design.
And do architects feel responsible for fire safety?
Yes, so in most of the case, yes, we also see differences between countries. So Italy seems to be the exception, where actually 63% of the architects consider that they are not at all responsible for fire safety. But in most of in all other countries, we see that most of the architects consider that they are fully or partly responsible for fire safety. And since in many cases they say partly responsible, on the next slide, it's interesting to see which other parties they are naming as being also responsible for fire safety. So they could name as many parties as they wanted. There were some suggestions. And then the results are also very interesting. Differences between countries again. And particularly, you can see that in some countries, it seems to be very clear. So like in France, where 72% of the architects say the building control authority is responsible, or in Germany and Italy, where the fire safety engineers are widely named. But in other countries, it seems to be a bit less clear or more diffused. So like in Belgium, Spain, or UK, where a lot of parties are named, but none of the parties is named by a majority of architects. So maybe there is something to do there to clarify a bit the responsibility.
Okay, what are your key learnings and messages in the context of the EU renovation wave?
So you and the MEP said already that fire safety is complex and must be combined with many aspects, so such as sustainability, affordability, energy efficiency, as mentioned by MEP Carvalho. And I don't think that we can ensure this with only very prescriptive measures about prescribing specific solutions there. We need to have a more science-based and performance-based approach in the design, and therefore we mainly need to have expertise, to have experts involved during the design, also so that they can address future challenges. And in that sense, from what we have seen in our survey, it seems there is room for improvement to involve fire experts much more, and particularly if we compare with energy experts in housing renovation. And as you rightly mentioned, these energy experts are required by the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, and therefore my question, could fire experts be similarly required by regulations? Second point, it seems that at least in some countries, fire safety responsibility should be clarified, or to be clearly designated to know who is responsible. And finally, we have seen significant national differences in the 8 countries that we could analyze. So therefore, our suggestion is to launch a EU-wide analysis of the situation with different points, so like legal requirements, level of architects' fire safety knowledge, availability of experts, fire safety responsibility, to understand what could be done. And we suggest that this could be something initiated by the Commission in the context of the European Fire Information Exchange platform. Okay,
do you see other critical roles for fire safety during design, construction, and operation of buildings?
Yes, of course. So I've put together some ideas on the slide, and I'm sure the other speakers will complement this. So during the design, we of course need architects and fire engineers to work together. There is also a role for building control authorities to validate the designs as part of building permits. Maybe also after construction to validate the construction. But during construction, we need some quality control that could be done by the architect or the fire engineer or by a dedicated person. During operation of the building, we need to think about inspection and maintenance, both for fire safety and for electrical safety. And what I also would like to mention is that we need to have adequate product testing and approval. So the fire testing labs are very important for this. And of course, all of this requires research and education to underpin all these fire safety elements.
So, and at the end, I have the question. I'm pretty sure that all participants or many of participants would like to ask, is this report from this survey is going to be available on the website or anywhere else?
So it will be on our website straight after the webinar.
Okay.
With all details.
Okay, Quentin, thank you very much for making this valuable survey and for sharing with us the results. So Quentin drew our attention to significant national differences in the involvement of fire experts for fire safety of buildings. That's why I propose now to learn some good European practices. Let me start with our next speaker, Karol Mojski, Karol is the head of the fire protection section at the national headquarters of the State Fire Service in Poland. Good afternoon, Karol.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you for accepting our invitation. So, Karol, we know that special fire safety experts have been introduced by law to the fire protection system in Poland. Could you please explain us an idea of this solution?
Okay. Generally, the main idea of fire experts was introduced in Poland in 1991, and it's regulated by the Fire Protection Act. This solution has evolved over nearly 30 years, and the current method of operation of fire expert has been functioning since December 2015. Currently, in Poland, we have about 500 fire experts. A fire expert can be any person holding an engineer degree who has appropriate knowledge and experience confirmed by a positive result of the exam. Most common fire experts are holders of fire safety engineering or construction engineering degree. The exam consisting of writing tests and proposing a solution of fire safety case study. The exam is very difficult. Average pass rate is only 10%. The examination is conducted by the examination committee, which members are chosen by the chief commandant of the State Fire Service from among all fire experts in Poland. The right to practice the profession of an expert is granted by the chief commandant of State Fire Service too. Summarizing, fire experts are involved in providing fire protection for buildings at every stage of the operation, as you can see, from design through the construction and exploitation process. Next slide, please. According to the applicable regulation, as you can see on the slide, fire experts are entitled to stating the compliance of the construction design with fire protection requirements, making opinions on the design of a fire protection installation, preparing technical expertise or other technical reports in the field of fire protection, performing other fire protection activities, for example, preparing firefighting reports of waste disposal sites, agreeing the technical design of photovoltaic installation, which power is over 6.5 kilowatts. The next is trying a fire safety instruction, carrying fire audits, or other assessments. So I think this is how it looks in Poland in a few words.
Okay, Poland is requiring the involvement of this fire expert for a certain kind of buildings. What is the requirement? Could you please tell us?
The process of agreeing a construction design in terms of fire protection by a fire expert generally is required for construction objects that are important with respect to the protection of life, health, property, or environment from fire, natural disaster, or other emergencies. The main criteria determining whether the construction design has to be consulted by an expert, according to our regulation, are in particular the type of the use of building, for example, hospitals, office buildings, production and storage facilities, or public building or public utility buildings. Other is the height of the building. In Poland, we have 4 groups of heights: the higher the building, the stricter the fire protection requirements. The next is fire zone size and fire load density, mainly areas exceeding 1,000 square meters and object above 500 megajoules on square meters fire load density. Number of parking places in garage, single-story garage over 10 parking places, or every multi-story garage. Objects equipped with fire installation, for example, fire alarm system, fixed firefighting installation, or voice alarm system. So if object is equipped with this installation, the design project has to be consulted with a fire expert. Other special objects, for example, nuclear facilities, tunnels over 100 meters long, objects with a risk of explosion. These are many criteria which involve fire experts.
Okay. Is there any training and accreditation system for fire experts?
Each expert is obliged to improve their qualification in a 5-year reference period system. It's some kind of verification system. During this period, the fire expert may choose one of 2 options. The first one is participation in dedicated trainings accredited by the national headquarters of the State Fire Service, NHCFS. And these trainings cover application of fire protection regulation, designing fire protection installation, and technical developments in this area. Each accredited training is awarded with points by the NHCFS. 20 points should be collected to pass the 5-year reference period. The second way is passing a periodic recertification test prepared by the examination committee, the same committee which prepared the exam for fire experts.
Okay.
Gaining 20 points by participating in trainings or passing the recertification test extend the qualification for another 5 years.
But is there also any external control system in place?
Supervision of the activities of the fire expert is performed by the Chief Commandant of State Fire Service with the assistance of Regional Commandant of State Fire Service, who is relevant for the region or area of the fire expert's operation. In case of any irregularities or misconduct in the activities of fire expert, the national headquarters of the State Fire Service may apply the following 3 sanctions. First is official written warning. Second, referral to a re-examination, which happen in the case of gross contraventions of the regulations or repeated errors of a lower weight numerous warnings. And the third is withdrawal of the right to practice the profession of fire expert. 3 years after the withdrawal, it is possibility to take the exam for a fire expert again. In addition, it is worth mentioning that due to the introduction of newer technologies, more frequent use of performance-based design, or the need to use computer modeling, there are cases where fire experts who do not keep up with technological process, for example, senior specialists, give up themselves and resign or retired for fire expert activity.
Okay, how is your experience with this approach? Is it contributing to better fire safety?
The changes in the regulation on the functioning of fire experts introduced in 2015 resulted in a significant increase in the quality of services provided by experts in the field of fire safety and their substantive value. Thanks to the introduction of training, fire experts gain easy access to specialist knowledge. The fire expert is more aware and confident in making decisions, as well as in proposing and verifying fire protection solutions. Trainings also enable the exchange of experience between experts as well as their supervising bodies. For example, regional headquarters of the State Fire Service has the possibility of organizing such trainings, which enables consistency in approach and understanding of fire safety requirements. Finally, the professional development of experts over the last 5 years is associated with reduction in the number of cases in which the final acceptance of the building by the State Fire Service found irregularities in the field of fire protection.
What would be your recommendation to other countries?
Taking into account the growing challenges for fire safety of buildings, especially due to energy transition processes, and referring to our experience with the fire experts in Poland, I think that sooner or later, each country will have to include accredited fire safety professionals with clearly defined roles and responsibilities to its fire protection system. Otherwise, I'm afraid we will watch more frequent news on a very tragic fires.
So, Karol, many thanks for your interesting contribution.
Thank you very much for attention.
Yeah, let's quickly move to another good European practice, this time on electrical inspections, and to our next speaker, Gary Parker from the Trade Association Excellence in Electrotechnical and Engineering Services. Hi, Gary. Thank you for joining the webinar. Can you hear me?
Hi, Christoph. Thank you.
So, regular inspection of electrical installations is also very important for fire safety. Can you explain why?
Yes, as you said at the very start of your talk, Christoph, electrical connections and electrical installations and electrical products cause a lot of fires. And the UK places a great importance on not just designing, constructing, but also inspecting electrical installations, because they can cause a lot of problems if the connections are inadequate. They can become hot, cause fires and spread. Installations over time will degrade, equipment will become damaged, and malicious damage can occur. And in the UK, we had a very, very tragic incident in 2017 with the Grenfell fire, where unfortunately 72 people died and there were over 70 people injured. Regular electrical inspections can help to find these problems and can make the installations safer.
Okay, UK is in Europe leading the way on electrical inspections. What's the system in place?
In the UK, we try our best to make sure that we follow the electricity at work regulations. This is a law in the UK that puts a requirement on building owners to ensure that their installations are safe. The law itself is quite simple and quite vague. Then we have good working practices like BS 7671, which is the British standard for electrical installations. And should an engineer, a designer or an electrician conform with BS 7671, they are likely to conform with the requirements of the Electricity at Work Act. That ensures that installations are maintained to a high standard with frequent inspections and electrical installation condition reports. A report on the installation and its failings are given to building owners.
What are the results of this approach?
So when a contractor undertakes an inspection on a building, they look at it from an electrical and a fire safety point of view, and they provide a written document, a report, done by a skilled electrical engineer that reviews the whole building, the whole elements of the electrical and fire safety. These reports are then listed with items and problems that they see, and they will grade them on their severity. A code 1 is immediately dangerous, and a code 3 is just something to be aware of and consider for improvement. And the installation is then classed as either satisfactory or unsatisfactory. And this can have ramifications on buildings' insurances, or if it's a business, the ability for it to continue operating.
What would be your recommendation to other countries?
The process that the UK uses works well. However, it can be a little complicated. So I would encourage that other countries follow similar process, make electrical inspections regular, robust and solid, enshrine these requirements in their law and make it clear where building owners must do certain duties, but also to require an appropriate and high level of documentation using skilled persons and only skilled persons to do these reports, as well as proper materials, good working practices and safe systems. And also maybe consider product registration. So when you buy a product, a washing machine, a tumble dryer, you must register that with the manufacturer to ensure that the product is safe, fit for purpose, and if there are any problems, a recall can be sent out quickly and everybody can get that product back to the manufacturer for repair.
Okay. Do you see other critical roles for fire safety during design, construction, and operation of buildings?
Oh, absolutely. In the UK, we have noticed some very, very tragic incidences, not just the Grenfell fire that sadly we will all be familiar with, but we had a fire in Shepherd's Court where there were 100 firefighters called to help put the fire out, which was a result of a faulty tumble dryer. We had a fire at Lankell House where there was 6 deaths and 20 people injured. And very recently, we had a fire in a place called Bolton, which was a student accommodation where 220 students were present. Fortunately, nobody was hurt and nobody was killed, but all needed to be rehoused. And it was only due to the brave firefighters that got them out there that nobody died. The Hackett report, post-Grenfell in the UK, will change construction for the better for the rest of time in the UK, and it's a fabulous document. If you can get a copy of it, it will certainly be a useful thing, and it asks over and over again about the requirement and the strength of good quality fire engineering and how it must be done in all construction.
So Gary, thank you very much for sharing with us UK experiences.
Pleasure, thank you.
Thank you very much. And this is how we ended the first panel of our webinar. Thank you very much all speakers for their support and valuable contribution. So let me briefly summarize this first panel, and at the same time, may we see a progress at Joy's drawing? I hope it will appear on the screen soon. So, and I will try to summarize. During the first panel, we learned how changes driven by the energy transition impact the fire safety of buildings and why it is so important to to develop knowledge and competency in the area of safety. We also got an insight into a very interesting survey, which clearly shows how diverse is the involvement of fire experts at the stage of designing buildings in Europe, and that fire safety responsibility is not clearly designated in many countries. Besides, we were presented with two legally embedded solutions concerning fire safety experts in Poland and electrical inspectors in UK, which may be inspiring for individual countries, but also for the EU institutions. Okay, let's have a look on the graphic. Oh yeah, we can see. Yeah, we can see the frame made from all cycle life of buildings, design, building, operation. We can see the role of this example of fire experts in Poland, and we can see the challenges to fire safety of buildings. What we can we see? We can see also electrical installations and recommendation provided by Gary. So of course, Joyce will keep drawing, and we will see the final result at the end of the webinar. Thank you very much, Joyce. Now I'm going to open next panel. This time, dialogue on required roles and responsibilities of fire safety professionals during building design, construction, and operation from the perspective of different stakeholders. Because when it comes to buildings, everything begins from the design. That's why let me start with the perspective of architects and welcome the first speaker in this panel, Amani Habbal. Amani is an architect and fire safety engineer who made a master thesis on the collaboration between fire safety engineers and architects. Good afternoon, Amani.
Thank you, Christoph. Good afternoon, everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. So you are first of all an architect, and you studied also fire safety engineering. Do you think architects have enough background on fire safety?
Well, as we can see in the illustration, the number of different variables that architects must consider when designing is huge. This large number will inevitably lead to prioritizing certain things over others, which in turn might result in ignoring some requirements. Since fire is a low probability but high consequence event, it's highly unlikely to be considered enough. And this applies to all humans, not only architects. Any non-professional who considers such an event would likely ignore some things. Though this has been tremendously improving lately with increased awareness, improved regulations, all of these things. Nevertheless, it can still end up as an ignored requirement. The priorities of architects will always be motivated by their artistic inclination, in which various engineering disciplines are regarded as constraints rather than possibilities. They limit the creative process, whether we admit it or not. Architects learn about HVAC, structural engineering, mechanical, electrical, etc., but definitely not enough about fire. They know the basics, but they don't know the details. They should know more about the heat release rates, how smoke propagates, all of these things, among others. Otherwise, they would not understand how much their design can have an effect on fire safety.
So you have analyzed the collaboration between architects and fire safety engineers. What are your key conclusions?
Well, the better the relationship among all key players of a project, the more successful this project will turn out to be. Effective collaboration would lead to safer, more aesthetically pleasing, and consequently more feasible and sustainable projects. Through education, both architects and fire engineers need to learn more about each other's work. Through practice, the increased collaboration in the workplace would lead to better collaboration. We're advocating for a holistic approach to building design, an approach that would fulfill the various requirements of aesthetics, functionality, safety, operability, sustainability, etc. The key is to work smarter and not harder, mainly through introducing professionals with a multidisciplinary knowledge and a broader vision. Thus, we need to improve competencies, education, professional organizations, and an overall heightened awareness that we do have a problem. But mostly skills and competencies in fire safety have to be improved.
When do you think architects need fire safety engineers? In which moment?
Well, as in the case of any collaboration between two professionals who analyze and understand things differently, the earlier the relationship commences, the better the opinions that each party is encouraged to provide, the more effective the end result will be. Fire engineers should work closely with architects from the early design stages. That would address any potential non-compliances that could lead to threats to life, property, or the environment. When the architectural design complies with fire safety codes from the preliminary design phase and throughout the execution and maintenance stages, it results in an overall improved efficiency, and it reduces the unproductive and expensive work downstream for all disciplines. Specialized expertise through all stages of the building lifecycle ensures that the original fire safety strategy and the integrity of the building performance will be maintained throughout design project. And as Quentin said, that structural engineers are involved, maybe more than fire engineers, because of the concept that we need buildable projects, and structural engineers are the ones who provide that. So once we understand that unsafe buildings also are unlivable and unbuildable, then we'll know that fire engineers have to be there throughout the project.
Okay, Amani, thank you very much for your contribution and for joining our webinar.
Yep.
And now let's learn the perspective of fire engineers. And let me welcome our next speaker, Jimmy Johnson, who is a well-experienced fire safety engineer from JVVA Fire and Risk. Jimmy, thank you for joining us. Hello.
Hi, Christoph. Thank you very much for letting me be part of this.
So, as fire safety engineer, do you think your profession is sufficiently involved into building design? In which cases do you consider your profession should play a role?
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not sufficiently involved in the building design. We should be, as any other discipline. I mean, we have the structural engineers, electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, and in exactly the same way there should be the fire engineers on the project. The underlying problem is this is a young discipline. We're between 30, 40 years back when the fire engineering education started. So in some countries, they don't even know what a fire engineer is. So that's a problem that we have. Going back to the role, the fire engineering is a multidisciplinary role. We touch all building design. As the former speaker pointed out, there's a holistic view that we need to do actually in building design. And the fire engineer is the connection point for anyone. It affects the structural design, the mechanical design, the architectural layout. So the fire engineering is a key point on any building project. And specifically for singular buildings, there are buildings and projects where we cannot comply with building code. Large airports, multi-shopping centers over different levels, they need a fire engineering to be there and make sure the design is safe. So there's no doubt about that. And of course, which is important as well to point out, is that the level of involvement for the fire engineer change with the level of complexity for the building. A very complex building will no doubt need a higher grade of involvement from the engineering, from the fire engineering.
Okay, should you also play a role beyond design? I mean, during construction or inspection?
Yeah, we should definitely do that. There's no doubt that we should be involved in the whole life cycle of the building. It's kind of a U-shaped curve, our involvement. In the start of the building life, we are prone to have more problems. There are commissioning. The design is being tested by functionality and activity of the building, and that requires our input at a higher grade. And this will actually slow down during the life cycle. And in the end, systems are getting old. We have new technologies coming in. We are changing the building, and and we need that involvement to a higher degree. And not to forget about that there are specific risks related to each phase of a building. The risks during construction are not the same risk that you have in the day-to-day activities of the building. It's not the same risk that you have for refurbishment. So those different risks needs to be considered, and that's I think that only can be done by a fire engineer in the end. And maybe the most important point is that any building will undergo change. There's no doubt about that, and that change to the building needs to be evaluated. Is it still safe? Is it still okay? And that's a fire engineering evaluation that is needed. So yes, we need to be involved not only in design, during the whole life cycle.
Okay, and what is, in your opinion, what is needed, in your opinion, to develop fire safety engineering and the profession of fire safety engineers in the EU?
Well, I think that's a very important question, and I try to actually show it with 4 major points. The first thing we need is education. We need specific education for fire engineers at university level, obviously. And we don't have that at the moment. You have it in specific countries. Universities need to collaborate and start having those programs internationally within Europe. And as long as we don't have fire engineering at university level, there is no way that we're going to have competent practitioners. So education is a first step. The second step is research. I mean, we have new fire risks coming in our building design. We have solar panels, we have house batteries, we have all of this energy transition, which is due to sustainability objectives. And those need to be understood. If we can't understand the problem, we're going to have a large difficulty to actually solve the problems. And related to the research as well, all research needs to be open source and free for all. At the moment, that's not the case. A lot of research is, you have to pay for the articles. It's not accessible through the university by simple link to download. And until that changes, we're going to have a problem with knowledge sharing for this. And then what everyone in today's webinar has touched upon is the competence of the practitioner. You must be able to show that you have sufficient competence to do fire safety on a building. You need to have a formal education. You need to have the right experience. If you don't have that, you're simply not going to be able to do a good job. And the last point I've put in there is ethics. Unfortunately, we have practitioners out there that they think they are competent. They know about fire safety, but in reality, they don't. So you need to be true to yourself and make sure you work within your competency zone. If you're not competent without anything, don't try to do a solution about it, because we'll just end up bad. And I think with these 4 points as a start, that's what we need in Europe to actually make this difference that is needed.
So, Jimmy, thank you very much for sharing with us your approach and rich experience. And let's ask our next speaker, Adamantia Athanasopoulou, Scientific Officer at Joint Research Center of the European Commission, about the current exploration on the fire safety engineering from the European Commission. So, good afternoon, Adamantia. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon. Yes, I can hear you.
The Joint Research Center has put in place a fire safety engineering expert network. What is the objective?
Well, to start with, to those not being familiar with, JRC is a science service of the European Commission. And as such, we are providing, among other things, support to DG GROW on the implementation of policies and standards for sustainable construction. So within this framework, JRC explores needs, possibilities, and feasibility of developing a fire safety engineering approach at European level. So in 2019, JRC established the Fire Safety Engineering Expert Network. This is a network of scientific and technical nature that focuses its work on the built environment. So for the time being, we are not touching upon industrial buildings and installations. The network's activities fully support the Commission's Fire Information Exchange Platform, that's the FIEP initiative. And then the network is participated by members coming from the standard world, so standard writers, fire safety experts, academics, researchers, and firefighters. What are the major topics of interest for this network? Basically, they are supporting our work, JRC's work, in three main actions. The first one, and to start off with, is to assess what is needed in terms of standards, so as to incorporate fire engineering in the regulatory framework of the member states. As a second step, and taking stock of this first action, is to explore the feasibility and the content of a European fire safety code. And then in parallel, as been touched also by other speakers, identify needs for guidance and training for fire professionals.
So thank you very much. And so what do you think is the way forward to develop fire safety engineering in Europe?
Well, challenging one. Let me start first stressing out, because this is the challenging issue, that fire safety of buildings remains at the competence of the member states. Why I'm saying this? Because we at the JRC are taking inspiration from the recent story of the success of the Eurocodes. For those not familiar, the Eurocodes are common European standards for structural design of buildings. Among other things, the Eurocodes touch upon fire safety because they contain what we call the fire design parts. These are the parts that provide unified technical rules on how to design a building for structural fire resistance. So they just offer a solution for one part of the fire safety issues. The Eurocodes are implemented in all European member states under very different regulatory systems. And why is that? Because they allow for a flexible implementation throughout the use of nationally determined parameters. So it is the member states to decide on how to implement these codes. As an example, you can see the map. In that map, I just chose one annex from the Eurocodes. It's a one called fire load densities. And actually, it is the one that is strongly linked to fire safety engineering. You can see that some countries have decided to keep it informative. Others have made it normative, while others have said not to be used. So you can see there is full flexibility of decisions of the member states. So how to approach fire safety engineering in Europe? First one is to assess implementation state. What is actually the situation now? Understand the differences and similarities. Identify what needs to be done in the standards world. For this, we are already working along with the Fire Safety Engineering Network. We are collecting feedback from the primary fire regulators in the member states. This is actually a survey running this month and will close next month. And once we have the results, we will assess them and then we will publish what we have found so far. So the next step and proposal would be to introduce fire engineering. The next step would be to introduce fire engineering principles by analogy to the Eurocodes, that is to provide common design rules with flexibility, and then to support education, training, and guidance for fire professionals. And to close this question, I just want to stress that the challenge of developing a European, let's say, fire safety code calls for cooperation between all stakeholders. So no one should be left behind.
So which additional roles are needed to implement fire safety engineering?
Indeed, this is something very important, and we will touch upon this on our survey to the fire regulators. The list is long. I mean, we have already named the architects, civil, structural, or building engineers, fire engineers, local and national authorities, policymakers, researchers, and the list does not end here. The necessity is not only to map the roles, but also the responsibilities of fire safety professionals, and this to be done for all phases of the building life cycle. Another challenging issue to address is the harmonization of qualifications. What is needed for someone to engage in fire safety engineering approach? And this also has been stressed by other speakers. So it's not only a matter of roles, which is of course important, but to have a clear understanding and consensus of who does what, when, and how.
So, Adamantia, thank you very much for providing us with some kind of the EU perspective on fire safety engineering. Once again, many thanks. So, we have been talking a lot on knowledge and competencies. They can't be developed without universities. Let's check the perspective of academics. I cordially welcome our next speaker, Professor Bart Mercy from Ghent University in Belgium, who is a program director of International Master of Science in the Fire Safety Engineering. Good afternoon, Bart. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. So good afternoon again. So the International Master of Fire Safety Engineering is supported by the European Union. How developed is the education of fire safety engineers in EU?
Thank you very much for this question, Christoph. And I'm very happy that multiple people have already stressed that the field of fire safety engineering is strongly multidisciplinary. And this was mentioned also by MEP Ms. Da Gracia Carvalho. And indeed, because it's so multidisciplinary and you need to cover the entire breadth of the discipline and also want to treat this in depth, you need time to do that. And this means also a time investment, not only from the academic institutes, but also from the students. And we have been fortunate to be supported by the European Commission through the Erasmus Plus program to deliver a 2-year full-time program. And that's actually what it takes to try and bring the competency in the field. And that's, I think, one aspect that makes us unique, because at many other academic institutes, there is indeed some education on fire safety, but very often embedded in another program where only a part of the fire safety aspect is addressed. And that is not enough for a fire safety expert, because a real expert has to be in the position of choosing appropriate measures for an ever-changing and ever-challenging world, including the energy transition that we are talking about here in this webinar. There is a second aspect, I think, that makes us unique, and that is also something that was mentioned before by Jamie, to have education across the borders. We are a multinational program combining institutes all over the world. You see the list on the slide, but also bringing students from all over the world together. Even today, in the difficult period that we're all facing, I'm very happy to say that the international students are physically in Ghent or in Edinburgh at the moment, and they also learn a lot from each other, and bringing their own culture and their own approaches, the national habits and national legislation to different fire safety aspects. And that's quite important, because the curriculum is actually quite well known. The competencies have been well defined by organizations like EuroFSA, the International Association for Fire Safety Science, or SFPE, and the Society for Fire Protection Engineering. These are well known, but it takes time, as I said, to cover it all.
Okay. Do you think we will need to educate more fire safety engineers in the future?
Yes, I definitely believe so, and it's not because I'm so heavily involved in the education and also in research, but you see here just a few topics or aspects that are ever changing and are always also challenging the professional field. We are talking about the energy transition, but there is also a worldwide trend in urbanization. And architects, we've seen an example, are always very creative, and that is a good thing. But obviously, this also goes then hand in hand with novel problems, novel issues with respect to fire safety engineering. And this also would include the use of modern materials. One that I would also like to stress is the climate challenge. I mean, we are observing quite significant challenges also with natural fires. That's not really the topic of today, but in the interface between the built environment and wildfires, so-called WUI fires, this is also something that is very interesting to look at. And for that, you need to educate people who can not only apply standards as they are, but can also understand the underlying principles, so that they can actually face new challenges and use their knowledge and competency to address those, because novel challenges are rarely addressed in existing standards.
How can we further support the development of fire safety knowledge and competency?
Well, I think, and I was very happy to hear the two MEPs at the beginning of this webinar mention the Green Deal. I think this Green Deal offers a very nice opportunity to create more awareness on the field of fire safety engineering. And then I particularly mean awareness and also interest for the very young people, the people who are now still at high school and elementary school, because they are the future, and young people are very much into climate and environment. And I think now we have a good opportunity to make clear that fire safety engineering is a good companion for that this will actually help also address sustainability and help also in the context of this Green Deal. So I think there might be an opportunity to try and really create some publicity or some public campaign to create that awareness. And also, I think it has been mentioned a couple of times, and I will agree, that there is a big interest in getting the professional field of fire safety engineering, or the professional fire safety engineer, to get that accredited or recognized across Europe and maybe even beyond Europe. But that's something that would be very helpful in many member states, and it would, I think, also assist in making the role of the fire safety engineer more clear, and also to create the habit of involving fire safety engineers more than is done today in the entire life cycle of a building, starting from the design up until the building being fully operational and probably then renovated at some point. I think there are a few opportunities that now could be grasped, and this would also then link, and then I'll close my talk. It will also link to stimulating research in the field, which is essential if we want to keep addressing future challenges. Thank you very much, Christophe.
Thank you, Bart. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your input and for your support. Let me inform our participants that Bart made also his intervention yesterday during the webinar on smoke propagation. So thank you again. So it is very good that EU is supporting the International Master of Fire Safety Engineering, because we need competent and well-prepared fire safety engineers. So now we have heard a very interesting perspective from all speakers. So let's have a look at the visual recording that has been done by Joyce. May we ask to display this one? Probably it's arriving, probably. Yeah. And now I would like to ask the panelists if they have additional reactions or elements to complement. If yes, please use the function raise the hand. Oh yes, we can see. I also invite all attendees to raise your question and comments via Q&A function. And yeah, and what can we see? We can see, I'm wondering if still is missing something, if still we miss something. Fire experts, roles of architects, key learning. Yeah. I'm wondering, what about the fire safety engineers? Can we see them here? Probably not yet. So, okay, I'm particularly interested to receive input on two questions. Do you see other critical roles for fire safety during design, construction, and operation of buildings to complement the visual recording? And the second one, do you have best practices to share from some other countries? We have already heard from Poland and UK. So Quentin, I have the question to Quentin. Quentin, do we have question or input from participants?
Yes, so we have several interesting questions. So maybe to start with the first one that is not that much content related, that was addressed to MEPs Svetlana Zovko, that I think left, but maybe someone else can reply, maybe Mrs. Carvalho, about the status of the motion for a European Union Fire Safety Day that had been tabled earlier this year. I think now we have, for the second time, the European Fire Safety Week, so maybe the question is, can we make it a bit more institutional with the support of the European Parliament. So, yeah, if Mrs. Carvalho is there and can say something on this, that would be good.
Is Mr. Carvalho, is Miss Carvalho still with us? I can't hear.
Can you hear me?
Oh yes, we can hear you. Could you please react to this question?
Actually, I don't have the information with me, but I can find out and let you know. Or if the person that put the question write me an email, I will be happy to give the information. So my email is easy to find, is maria.carvalho, and the rest is the same at Europa.eu.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your response. And
just me ask one question. Can we put the drawing in the social network, in the Twitter, or
yes, of course.
Permission for that?
Yes, of course.
Very
Yes,
nice.
of course. Yes, of course. We will share with this. Yes, of course. Yeah, Quentin, do we have any other relevant questions or comments?
Then I think there is a question that is interesting to debate with everyone about, so fire experts, this is mainly for big buildings, which I'm not so sure actually, but and we know that the majority of the fire are in the residential sector. And so is it a solution to organize inspections that are combining all aspects, so energy efficiency, electrical safety, fire safety, so with one person that could do everything together? So maybe to discuss a bit the how we deal with the different types of buildings and the level of competency needed.
So I have a question to our speakers, if somebody of you would like to react to this question. No, I can't hear. Jimmy, Jimmy, you are very well experienced in the fire engineer. Maybe you could react to this question. May I ask you?
Yeah, I was trying to, but I was mixing up my sound.
Ah, okay.
Yes, I mean, both yes and no, I would say, because I don't think it's that simple to. I mean, we need to check a lot of systems and so on, but as I said before, it would be very difficult for a mechanical engineer or just an inspection, someone very familiar with inspections, to actually understand and see critical things that has to do with electrical failure or fire problems or whatever other problems. So a simple checklist approach can be done, but to actually spot those problems, you need to have that specific knowledge. So it's difficult to actually having one person doing all that. That's what I think.
Okay, so Jimmy, thank you very much for reaction. Is there anybody from among the speakers who want to complement or supplement this response? Bart, are you still with us? Yeah, you are still with us. Bart, may I ask you for a reaction?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you very well.
Yes, I'd like to confirm what Jimmy has just said, in the sense that it might depend indeed on the building. If you have a relatively simple residential building, then you probably would not need a very difficult check. But very often the fire safety engineering experts are involved in more complex buildings, and then the fire safety design as a whole can have many interacting different aspects to it, and that may make it quite difficult for a non-fire safety expert to fully appreciate what is the importance of certain specific measures, and that may make it a bit tricky, because very often it's not so easy to pick out one of the aspects from the fire safety design or fire protection approach and to address only that aspect. Very often you need a more holistic approach. So I will agree that it's not so straightforward, particularly for a non-expert, to address or to assess the fire safety design.
So,
that would be my perspective.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And Quentin, do we have more questions?
Yes. So there is a question from Heikki Vananen from DG Grow asking whether the survey that we did about the involvement of fire engineers by architects, whether we looked at differences between countries having a more descriptive approach to fire safety, more so prescriptive approach, I understand, or the one with performance-based approach. So now we looked at 8 countries that you have seen on the screen. We have not digged into this difference between prescriptive approach or performance-based approach, which would certainly be relevant in a more detailed analysis. So that's what I would answer to this question.
Okay, and to everybody, please remember that you still can send comments on what should we supplement our drawing with, just in case. Maybe everything is on already covered, but if not, you can still comment and make a proposal what should be in the drawing supplemented with. Okay, Quentin, do we have some more comments or questions?
So another question from Juliette Albiac is, so she agrees that fire safety engineering is key to ensure fire safety of buildings, particularly for complex building. But how can we be sure that the competence level is good enough and not used to cut corners? That can be a question maybe to the example of Poland or to Jimmy as well.
So
yeah, I can give a quick one on that one. That's one of the main problems that we have. We have practitioners that they think they are competent and they're doing designs based on their competence level, but they lack this, they can't recognize that they're not competent. So they do errors, but those errors, we will not see them until it's too late. So that's why it's a need to have some kind of formal, I don't know, competence recognition of that you need a specific education and a number of years of practice and experience. But the main problem is that, I mean, we have non-competent engineers doing fire engineering, and it ends up pretty bad.
So Jimmy, thank you very much. Is Carol still with us? Carol, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Carol,
yes, I'm still here.
Do you want to supplement something based on the Polish experiences with the because in Poland the old system was built and it is, let's say, strongly embedded in law.
Exactly.
And many governmental administration, I mean the national headquarters of the state fire service is involved and take care of the system. Do you want to supplement this to this reaction of Jimmy?
I think the proper level of fire safety, each fire expert want to consult a proper level of fire safety, but at the end, according to our law, the authorities has the main role if the level of fire safety is good enough or not, and they decided finally.
Okay. So, okay, you mentioned in your presentation that some fire experts who were, let's say, certified, they resign to continue their job as a fire expert. Could you please remind us why? Carol, can you hear me? I'm wondering. Carol, do you want to repeat the question?
Yes, Christoph, please repeat, yes.
Okay,
sorry.
I will repeat the question, okay. During your presentation, you told us that some fire experts who practice in Poland, that at least a few such cases you already observed, that they simply resigned by themselves. Could you please remind us why?
Because more of them are the senior specialists, and they stand a fire expert from, for example, 80 years, and today they are 70s, for example, 16 years old, and they can improve their knowledge because the technological is still improved, and they don't want to improve themselves.
You mean they are not able to follow the progress in
of technological progress? Yes.
Technological progress, and okay. So thank you very much, Karol. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So Quentin, do we have more questions?
Yeah, so there is one question from Benoit Dome regarding energy transition at EU level. Who is responsible? Is it the FIEP or GRC expert? So maybe we can ask Adamantia, and I think we have Heikki Vananen as well, and I can give him the right to speak if he agrees to say something about that, Heikki.
Yeah. So
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes. Well, it's the old story of division of responsibilities that Adamantia was already referring to. According to the subsidiarity principle, the fire safety of built environment is a competence of the member states, and the EU level plays a role there, a small role in relation to construction products through construction product regulation, which will then ensure internal market for construction products. But as we all know, let's say, trying to manage this issue, which is a complex issue at the level of construction products, is not going to work, and therefore there needs to be, of course, both sides. But I would see the main responsibility for safety of the citizen lies with the member states.
Okay, so thank you very much. And Adamantia, do you want to complement also? To add something?
I will make again, yes. I will just make again the point about the Eurocodes that deal with structural safety, which is again something that relies on the member states. This is not an issue. I mean, having the member states regulating safety issues it's challenging, but it's not a problem. We have the example. The idea is how to have a successful and flexible implementation, and this can be done once we give the general framework for fire safety, and then we give also the tools to the member states to regulate this issue on national level. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Adamantia, for your intervention. So Quentin, more questions or comments?
Yes, there are several. So one that is interesting, and maybe to Karol, Ruud van Limpt asked whether have you considered the CPD system? So I think it's continuous professional development system of the Institution of Fire Engineers for continuing professional development, so for periodic recertification. So I guess the question was addressed to Karol to ask whether it's considered in Poland, this CPD system of IFE.
So, okay, if I correctly understand the question, okay, Ruud van Limpt, have you considered the CPD system of the Institution of Fire Engineers for continuing professional development for periodic certification? Is that question, yes?
Yeah.
Continue? Okay, so fire experts can attend to other training courses to increase their skills, but not all courses can be counted. Can have a point for attend to this course. Fire experts has to, as I said, fire experts has to gain 20 points to extend their 5-year levels, but to improve their skills, they can take a part in other courses. For example, or the specialist courses. If the fire experts want to be specialists, for example, fire sprinklers, he should go to a strictly training for fire sprinklers. The courses for extending the 5-year periods is only for them to to insist from authorities to improve their skills, but they should be by own increase their skills and knowledge.
Okay, thank you very much, Karol.
If you understand what I want to explain.
Thank you, Karol. Thank you.
Thanks.
So, Quentin,
yeah.
Do we have
so
more?
we still have several questions. I don't know whether we will be able to address all of them, but there is one that is maybe more for me. What do you think about the role of building material producers in fire safety engineering and design? So just a question from Koen van Gas. So first, as representing an association of building material producers, I would say our role is first of all to test our materials and declare their performance according to all what is in place, so that the fire safety experts, the architects, have the information that they need. So I think that's quite essential for me. Maybe other panelists will have something to complement on this aspect.
So is there anybody who wants to complement the reaction of Quentin?
Yeah, I would like to add a comment on that one.
Please, Jimmy.
Yeah, I think this is a key question. It's very important because if the fire engineers are going to be able to respond to these new fire risks, there's a need to understand these new materials and the new building methods. So that is interlinked with the research. It's no research and tests are being done that can give the fire engineers the knowledge they need to respond to the solutions. It's very difficult to actually know how to design this and to count in the new fire risks. So the research and testing of new materials is vital. It's very important for this process.
Okay, thank you very much, Jimmy. So on the screen, you can see that in the meantime, Joyce newly concluded the drawing, and it looks very impressive and as complex as the issue of ensuring fire safety of buildings, probably. Yeah. Quentin, do we still have, probably we have 3 minutes for next question. If you have some question, please continue.
Yes, so someone was asking why have independent technical controllers of buildings, so private and public, been left out of this discussion? Yeah, I don't think they are out of the discussion. That can be a role as well. So independent technical controllers of buildings, private and public. I think yeah, this is part of the elements. So if you have more information to provide, you can also type it in the chat. Then the same person suggested that since there are many members of the European Parliament involved in supporting this question, there is a suggestion to establish a fire safety intergroup in the Parliament to have more discussions on this. So that's maybe something which the members of the European Parliament can react if they want.
So do we have any member of European Parliament with us? Probably Mr. Carlos Zorinho join us. No,
yes, I'm now with you, but I could perhaps to reflect a little about that in my conclusion remarks. Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. So thank you very much.
And then, yeah, I think again related to the question of subsidiarity, but so okay, it's important to promote fire safety engineers in EU. However, fire safety is the responsibility of the member states, so it will be hard to promote this professional stuff at the EU level. Maybe it would be better to increase the fire safety science knowledge in each of the educational level of all the people involved in fire safety in building and transport. So I think it's more comment that we have addressed already. And there was also a comment from Clelia Petru supporting the whole story and asking that, stating that as a fire engineer, she would like to see more regulations on fire safety obliging the member states to have fire strategies from fire experts and not from other type of engineers. And she was highlighting the need to have continuous training for fire officers and continuous involvement of fire engineers during the life cycle of the building, so which has been stated several times. And Adamantia, you said that you wanted to answer to this additionally. So Adamantia, do you have something to add on this?
Yes, something very brief, just to, this is one of the topics we will be collecting feedback and data from the fire regulators in the member states through our surveys. So we will tackle also this issue about accreditation and qualification of fire engineers to understand what is the picture in the member states. So we will try also to address this issue. Thank you.
So great. So that's part of the work on fire safety engineering by DGGRC. And one last question that there was is about how to overcome the protection of one's own knowledge and share knowledge with others, because many are hiding their knowledge. So I don't know whether anyone would like to address this question.
It's because it's a difficult question, maybe because...
If I may, as an academic...
Okay, please, Bart, please take the floor, yeah.
So of course, I realize that I have a very comfortable position as an academic and not having commercial interest. But this is something that we are also training our students to do in a 2-year program. So we don't only make them ready for the professional market, but also to do PhD type of research. And that is by definition public research. And so I think there is a role here for academic institutes to perform that. That's quite obvious. But I do also think that this is to some extent a joint responsibility. And of course, I mean, I fully understand that not everything can be shared immediately, but overall principles, I think, are important to share as much as possible in public. And there, I think also European level research projects can be quite helpful to build up that common knowledge as much as possible. But I do understand that I am in a very comfortable position as an academic to comment on this.
Bart, thank you very much for your reaction. So it is great to receive so much input. Unfortunately, we can't discuss all input today due to the lack of time, but we will capture all what is in the chat and Q&A, and also invite you to share further thoughts by emails after the webinar, so that we can involve you in the future work, because this webinar is only a first step. So let's have a last look on the drawing. It looks really very impressive, and on the first side it looks complete. Yeah, we will share with this one via social media, and you will have access to this one. Okay, so thank you everyone for your participation and contribution. I think today's webinar showed how important it is to discuss the role of fire safety competency to accompany the energy transition. Let me remind you, it's one of the 10 actions proposed in the European Fire Safety Action Plan, and that's why we will continue to work based on the first mapping of fire safety roles that we have produced today. We will also discuss with the EU Parliament and the European Commission which role they can play in the process. And for this reason, I am pleased to give the floor to Member of European Parliament, Mr. Carlos Zorinho, for his closing remark. Mr. Zorinho, the floor is yours. Can you hear us, Mr. Zorinho?
No, I need to mute myself, I think. Now I thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you very much for the invitation of the European Fire Safety Alliance. This is, I'm very proud to be with you. It allows me the possibility to feel a little the impact of some work done in my parliamentary activity with a close partnership with my former colleague Teresa Griffin. And let me tell you that Teresa's departure was one of the most damaging consequences of Brexit in this field. This opportunity also remembered me the memory of having been responsible for this area in the Portuguese government at the beginning of the century. Technology improves a lot. Now you have more responsibility to do things well, and mostly we have more responsibility to improve networks, to share knowledge, and to achieve best results. Energy transition and the building renovation. It's something that it's very important to discuss when we discuss the issue of fire safety, because it links with the climate protection, economic recovery, and quality of life. It links with citizens' daily life, and we need to put politics working as something that is feel as important for citizens' the daily life. Fire safety is obviously essential, but we would like to think that someone else is taking care of it in the background, so we don't have to think about it. But when there are some catastrophes, all people talk about this issue. So we need to make this work with a lot of skills and with high level of capability. It's clear from today's discussion, and I only have the possibility to hear the last part, because I was also invited as co-chair of the ACP Joint Parliamentary Assembly to participate in the high-level conference about migration. That is also about climate change, also about knowledge, also about globalization of good practices. But it's clear that to involve policymakers, academics, architects, fire engineers, fire services, industry, and other experts, it's very important to ensure that fire safety adequately accompanies the renovation wave and the energy transition. The Green Deal, as you know, 40% of the new next generation EU funds will be used in the Green Deal, part in the biodiversity, other part in the energy transition, and to fight climate, to have climate action. Fire safety in buildings is complex and becomes more and more complex with new technologies related to energy transition, and this is why we need knowledge and competency to manage this complexity. All of us, I think we know that it's not possible simply prescribe specific technical solutions that would work in all situations. It's better to ensure you have the right skills to apply the best solution in this situation to meet the fire safety objective. So the fire safety engineer must work together with the architect and the other experts to combine fire safety with all other objectives of energy efficiency, sustainability, affordability, comfort. This holistic approach, it's important in this field, but in all fields of the new science innovation, and to take the better technology. Even in fire safety in building codes is something that tilts at national level. There is a great added value to discuss it at the European Union level. I was shadow rapporteur of the energy governance rules, and my experience to create a template that need to be used in the 27 countries to show how they want to achieve some results, for instance, in clean energy. It's a good example, and it could be used in other examples, and also in fire safety, to have a common template. There are different ways to achieve the same goals, but you need to show how, and you need to involve the civil society doing that, and you need to to communicate with an understandable language. So I would really also like the Commission could launch a study on national practices on the way fire safety quality is ensured during design, construction, and use of buildings, on roles, responsibilities, and competencies of professions. It should involve various types of stakeholders and should help to develop a roadmap for development of fire safety knowledge and competency. This could help the Commission or a group of institutions, but this could be a very important tool. I would like to thank the European Fire Safety Alliance and the other organizers for this webinar and whole European Fire Safety Week. This is part of a broad and ambitious fire safety action plan that I'm proud to support. I would also like to thank other colleagues from the European Parliament, the European Commission, and all participants for their contribution. And I hope this work will continue to remember my past and to help me bringing to my future and the future of our citizens. Thank you very much.
Mr. Zorino, thank you very, very much for joining the webinar and for addressing these closing remarks to participants. And we do appreciate also your support for many other initiatives aimed at improving fire safety in Europe. So, because it was the last webinar organized under an umbrella of the European Fire Safety Week 2020, let me ask Eli van Strien, chair of the European Fire Safety Alliance, for his closing address. Eli, please take the floor.
Thank you very much, Christoph. And thank you very much that I have the possibility to have some closing remarks, because indeed it is the last webinar of 5 in this second European Fire Safety Week. First of all, thank you all very much. Thank you all very much by participating at these events, more than 500 people in 40 countries. Thank you very much for all the people who had their contribution in this wonderful webinars. Like I said, we had several kinds of webinars. Today it was about energy transition. This afternoon in buildings, this morning in transport. We spoke about the vulnerability of our society. On Tuesday, we talked about awareness on fire safety. We talked about smoke propagation. So there are different items, and all those were the items of the European agenda we have about fire safety. We heard a lot, and we heard also that we make progress, but ladies and gentlemen, we also hear there is a lot of work to do. And instead of thinking that someone else is going to make the difference, we really need each other to make progress. We have to keep each other sharp to make sure that we continuing with the work relentlessly to achieve results. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we all are always shocked when we hear something about a disaster on fire. But as a matter of fact, I'm also shocked when I read every day in the newspaper casualties on fires day to day, which go up to 5,000, and most of those fires are preventable. And that's the reason that we really have to do something. We want to continue the work together with the experts we heard, with the countries, with the European Commission, who can do a lot of work also with us. And this week we have seen the progress we make. And please, ladies and gentlemen, I would ask you, keep focus on the European Fire Safety Action Plan, because that could be the guideline for us for the coming 2 years to really make the difference in fire safety. And the European Fire Safety Alliance will keep on stimulating us, informing us about the progress, and that we need each other to continue. We need you, so help us. So if you can help us, we can help you, and all of us, we can help the European citizen to make a safer Europe. And that's the reason we all do the work for, because we care about people. Thank you again for this European Fire Safety Week. Stay safe, and I hope to meet you again. Thank you very much.